Hi, welcome to my first tutorial on Unity 3D's new input system. In this series, we're going to look at how to use the new input system for a basic 2D controller. And in this video, we're going to look at how to set up the controls, and we're going to make the most basic parts of the controller. So in the end of the video, we will be able to walk and jump, and that's it. Nothing really fancy, and the jump will be pretty bad. But that we will fix in the next video. So, let's get started. In Unity, I'm going to select a 2D project. It doesn't really matter, but 2D is set up for 2D. And I'm going to call it something like 2D project. So once inside Unity, we're going to go up to Window and down to the Asset Store. No, the Package Manager. And letting it fetch the content. Here we're going to select Packages and Project and switch that over to Unity Registry. In here we're going to find the new input system. It's right here under Input System, and press Install. When it's done installing, it will ask us if we're going to switch over to the new input system. And by doing that, we will restart the editor and disable the old input system. We're going to select yes, because that's what we want. Great, now we're ready to use the new input system. In our scene view, whoops, I just detached that one. Great. In our scene view, we're going to add two components right now. In our hierarchy, I will right click and go to a 3D object and make a cube. And that cube I will duplicate by pressing Ctrl D. So the first cube, I will rename that to player, not with a capital L. And the second cube I will call ground or platform. Let's call it platform. The platform I will scale in the x-axis to, let's say, 15. And I will just pull the player 1 unit up. Great. So now we have a box sitting inside a larger box. Right now these are two 3D objects, but we're going to make a 2D game. So we are going to switch our box colliders out with some 2D box colliders. The easiest way to do this is selecting the player and Control click the platform. So now both are selected, so we can see what components they have in common. And the box collider is one of them. And this is a 3D box collider. So I will press 3 squares to the right and press Remove Component. I will add a new component, the box collider 2D. Great. So now they can interact with each other in the 2D space. I will select my player next and add a rigid body. You guessed it, 2D. So my box will now be able to fall down in our 2D environment. So we're actually ready now to make the input system. And I will add the new component and write input. And so add the player input component. We have the option to make our own input script, but we can also tell Unity to create the actions for us, and this will create a basic script. We'll just do it so you can see what it does. I will just call it player input. It will give me a warning down here on error. That doesn't matter. I have no idea why it does that. I think it's a bug, but yeah. Under actions, it still says none, because even though we just created one, so we're going to press a little circle to the right. And there it is, player input. Now I can double tap it. And you can see we opened the input manager, and it will say player. You can see it already created move, look, and fire for us. If we expand them, you can see move. It will accept the left stick on our gamepad, WASD on our keyboard, primary 2D axis on our XR controller, that is for virtual reality, and the stick for a joystick setup. Well, if I press left stick, you can see on the right side, it will say this is for the gamepad setup, and WASD is for the keyboard and mouse setup. So right now we could actually make a game without doing anything in here if we could live with WASD and fire, but we can't. We're going to add our own jump. So in the action up here, I will press the plus sign, and I will add a jump action. Instead of no binding, I will add a binding over here. My gamepad, it will be the south button. So it will be, it says south button because it will use the south button on any controller. It doesn't matter if it's a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Nintendo controller. It will be linked to the gamepad. And I will press the plus sign, add a binding, one more binding. And I want my jump to be space. So instead of finding it in here, I can just press listen and press my spacebar on the keyboard. So it will ask me, did you mean space on the keyboard or any key? And well, I will use my space bar. And I will also say that it should be linked to my keyboard and mouse. Great. Save asset. And press the X. So the input system is set up right now. You can see down here under actions, down below actions, there's the default scheme. It says any. So if we want it to only look at the gamepad, we can say press here, or only keyboard and mouse, and we will select this one. But right now I don't care. You can use the gamepad or the keyboard and mouse. So I will let it be on any, and it will auto switch. Yeah, let's make a script to move our character. So add component. And I will make a script that's called player controller. That's a pretty basic name. And I will open the script in Visual Studio. So let's first add a new library. So we're going to write using Unity Engine input system. So we can use the new input system. And we're going to have some variables. We're going to have a vector2 that can contain our direction. So a private, no, let's do a public first so we can see it in action. Public vector2, and call it direction. We're actually only going to use our X direction for now, but let's keep our options open. We are going to have a float that we are also going to make a public float so we can change the value afterwards. Float, so that's going to be our player speed. Let's set that to 5. That's always a good number to start with. Yeah, we are also going to make a public float for our jump force. Let's set that to 5 also, so we can see something happening. And I'm going to make a private boolean, private bool, and whoops, private bool, jump. Let's just call it that. So this will get our input for our jump. Now we're going to make a public boolean, no, a private boolean, private bool that we'll call jump. That's just so we can store if we're jumping or not. So getting the input from our jump action. And a private rigid body 2D, call it RB2D. So we can give our character some movement. In our start function, we're going to get a reference from our component. So RB2D is equal to get component rigid body 2D. That's the type of a component we're going to look for in our inspector. And that's it. So we're going to move our character with rigid body. So I'm going to change my update to a fixed update. And that should be a capital F. Great. So we're using the new input system, and the way it works is that our actions are methods inside our script now. So let's say we want to access our jump action or listen to our jump action. We would write void on jump. We call the action jump inside our input manager. So our action will just have on before it. So on jump, on move, on fire. So on jump. And when we jump, yeah, Jesus Christ. Let's try that again. So when I press my spacebar, I want jump to be true. This is not the best way to make a jump function, but like I said in the beginning, we're going to change this in another video. So let's get our move on. Get that? Move on. Okay, void on move. And here I'm going to just click because it will automatically guess that I want to press the on animate move. It just has some bugs still. So on move. And the move function is a bit different than our jump function because our on jump is just a button listener. So if I go back to Unity and let it load, I can open our input manager again, and I will just show you what I mean. See, our jump function is just a button, but our move is a value that it will get. So it will get the value from both our X direction and our Y direction. So we have two buttons for the X direction. It's A and D. So if it's A, it will be -1, and if it's D, it's +1. Likewise, for the Y direction, W is a +1, and S is -1. And if we have a controller set up, the joystick will give a float value between -1 to 1. So those are just values and not just a button press. So what we're going to do here is write, we want an input value like this, and I'm going to call it dir, like direction. So now this function knows that it will receive a value from our input manager. Let's see, direction. I made a vector2 to store a value from our onMove. Direction equals to dir.get. What kind of value is it getting from our input value? It's going to get a vector2. Okay. Just to show you that it works, we can see here direction. It will get the vector2 stored in direction. I made it a public. So I saved it, and I'm going to go back to Unity and wait for it to compile. Okay. Let's see our player. You can see here direction 0 and 0. If I press play, it should still say 0 and 0, but if I press the WASD key, it says -1 when I press the W, +1 with the D, 1 in the Y direction with the W, and -1 with the S. Okay, so it's getting our input. That's great. So in fixed update, I'm going to say that our RB2D dot velocity. I like using velocity because I think it's a more snappy feeling controller. Equals a new vector2. And I want to move it in the X direction. So I'm going to find direction dot X dot X. Yeah, there it is. And multiply that value with our player speed. And in the Y direction, I would just want it to have the speed that it has. So I'm going to write RB2D dot velocity dot Y. Okay, let's make a jump function. Or let's just see that this works. It will work. It will give us a warning down here that we have set up jump, but is not assigned to anything. Okay, see, WSD, we are going to move in our, X direction. And I think that's a bit slow. I like a more snappy feeling. Let's see, 10. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to change that to 10. Okay, back to our script. So when I press spacebar, jump will be set to true. So if jump equals true, I want to do exactly the same like in our move function. But instead of in the X direction, I'm lazy. I'm doing it this way. RB2D.velocity.x. So it will just have the speed it has in the X direction. And in the Y direction, I'm going to just write jump force like this. And when that's done, I'm going to reset our jump to to false. So jump equals false. Great. So I know I said this twice, but third time is the charm. I know this is a bad way of doing jump, and I will show you why. It will work. It will just work too well. So now I can move in the X direction, and if I press spacebar, like tap the spacebar, it will jump. If I hold the spacebar, it will just jump. It's a very floaty feeling jump right now, but that's not the issue I have with the jump function right now. It's if I press this space, I can just infinite jump instead of double jump. Great. And we will fix that in the next video. So actually this was it. Our controller is set up. We can move around and we can jump. So see you in the next video.